My name is Shane Callender. I'm a firefighter paramedic with Monterey County Regional Fire District. I was driving the fire truck and we got a call kind of late at night for a vehicle accident up Pine Canyon. So we responded to that, and because I knew the location, I knew where Ross lived, I kind of had a gut feeling of what might have been going on. And it wasn't until got on scene and gave an update, and that's kind of when my heart sank a little bit, because I kind of had a feeling what was going on. I wasn't sure who was alive. I just heard there was 2 people, 1 fatality. So I had a feeling it could have been him, but I wasn't sure yet until I arrived on scene, and we parked at the bottom because our fire engine couldn't make it up the narrow road. So we had someone else take us to the top, and by the time we got to the top, they were pulling Alex up from the ditch, and I'd gotten word that there was a fatality, and so I went down to see, and it was him. Sorry. Sorry. So I had So I took a second and walked back up and had to go back to work and help put Alex in the truck and take him to the ambulance. And at that time, we came back to pull Ross up and take him back down and just wait. They were coming down and they had to stop, so they pulled their emergency brake and lost traction, and they first rolled right here because you could see where all the glass is, and they rolled a few more times down and stopped at that tree about halfway down the embankment. I lost a friend here. Ross's family lost a son and a grandson, and I don't want you guys to go through the same thing.
So we planned on having a bonfire the night of the accident, and we did. We had a bonfire. It was me, Ross, Riley, and Austin, and just sitting around the fire, chit-chatting. We had a couple drinks, not very many at all, and Ross had this car that we pretty much would just beat up for fun. He got it for free. He didn't care about it. That's what he wanted. That's what he liked to do to it. And the last time we took it out, it got a flat, so we found a spare tire for it. Not a wheel, but a tire. So Ross decided to change that tire at like 11 o'clock at night. So we changed it, and as soon as we got that tire on, I think we told Austin that where we were going, and normally it takes us about, 30 minutes round trip up to the top of the hill and back down. And so we took off. The brakes weren't that great. The seatbelts really didn't work in it all that well. And we went. So we went up to the top of the hill, his favorite spot, and sat there for a couple minutes, enjoyed the view, and then headed our way back down. And we weren't but a mile away from the house when we came around a turn, and the gate was closer than we thought it was. The terrain had changed, so we didn't recognize where we were at exactly, and so because the brakes weren't working that great, he pulled the e-brake, and the e-brake sent us sideways, and there was this berm on the side of the road. The back tire hit the berm, and as soon as it hit, it rolled. Rolled once on top of the road, and then I think 3 times downhill. And we were there for 2 hours waiting. I was stuck. Ross wasn't responsive. And we were about a mile up in the hills, so nobody could hear us. Nobody knew what was going on. The only way that somebody figured out where we were, they didn't know what happened, was because we weren't back like we normally were in the amount of time that it normally takes. And so they came looking for us and they found us.
The things we would do, we spent a lot of time in the Salinas River right down the street from here. We did some dirt bike riding, but yeah, spent, I would say, a majority of our time in the river, just driving our vehicles around. So some of the places we would ride, one of them being Hollister Hills. The types of trails, I mean, Ross being Ross, he didn't care what it was as long as we were all together, we were riding. Doesn't matter how technical it was, he was always happy to ride it.
So the first bike right here is a 2021 Honda 250R, 4-stroke. Before that, he's always been on a little Kawasaki 110 pit bike. He's always ridden that. I don't think he's ever really been on a big bike, and when he did finally get on the big bike, he was a natural.
A lot of the things that we did were, extreme sports, things that have high risk, high reward. Anything to kind of get our heart pumping was what we wanted to do. We didn't like football or baseball. We liked, something that you could really get hurt on. If you take a video, it looks even cooler.
So some of the protective gear that we would wear would be helmets, goggles, chest protectors, kidney belt, neck brace, boots, riding pants, and then riding jerseys. We wore a lot of protective gear, and sometimes it felt very clunky, but it really protected us when we would have a crash.
It was a very tragic thing that happened. It's very hard to still believe that that is what happened, as much as we don't want that to be the reality of things. As long as we still have each other and we still share the memories all the time, like even going deer hunting this season, I couldn't remember a time that we didn't talk about Ross, and the memories that we had and all the fun things that we wish that we could have Ross there with us. And it's a lot to handle and it's a lot to take in, but as long as we know that he's looking down on us and making sure that we're all right, I know that everything's going to be fine.
So that night of Ross's accident, I think he was a little excited to get up in the hills. He was ready to go, kind of deal, and just excited. And I think he missed some of those safety steps that we'd previously talked about, and checking the brakes. And just one little thing like that cost him and everybody. It didn't just hurt him; it hurt the whole family and all of his friends. Everybody was impacted. So make sure you check the brakes and go through the proper safety instructions before going up into the hills.
I think what made me most happy hanging out with Ross is he was such an easygoing guy. He was the kind of person who would stop whatever he was doing and come help you as soon as he could. He'd kind of give you the shirt off your back kind of guy. One of the nicest persons that I think I've ever met in my life.
So Ross was one of those standout guys. The second you meet him, you don't even know him, and he'll lend you his hand. And anytime you needed help, if he met you for 10 minutes somewhere at someone's house or a get-together, he's always willing to lend a hand out.
I'd like to share a story with you that happened to me this past summer. It's surprising how many young people are dying in these off-road accidents. I met a young woman this past summer in Sonoma County, California. We instantly felt a connection. We felt each other's pain. Christina Caron lost her daughter Athena on January 16, 2021 in a side-by-side accident. Athena was 19 years old. The vehicle became out of control and hit a tree at the top hill and rolled over. Athena was thrown completely out. Her friend was not wearing a seatbelt either, but survived because Athena was sitting on her lap and held her down. The man did have a seatbelt on and he survived. Alcohol and not wearing seatbelts is not a good choice when you're behind the wheel and a passenger. It seemed like fun, but it is the choices that we make in a moment that can destroy our lives. This is a crippling experience and heartache for those that are left behind. With God's blessing, there is the sadness and the joy. Christina and I have been soulmates through our love for Athena and Ross.
As a fireman, I believe in prevention and preventing a tragedy like this by wearing your seatbelt, wearing protective gear, not driving at night, and driving sober.
You know, a few things that could have been avoided for this tragic accident that had happened to Ross were, making sure that you're not driving at night and making sure that you know exactly what's in front of you, making sure you're not under the influence of anything, you're not on your phone, you're always paying attention to what's ahead of you. And a lot of that, what happens is it falls back on you and your family because, your family's got to suffer for it and your friends have to suffer for it. And
There one day and gone the next, and it affects everybody.
So as an IndyCar mechanic, one of our top priorities is safety. As we strap a driver into a car that we built and we put everything together on it, these cars go over 230 miles an hour on some circuits. So we take our time strapping the drivers in with the safety belts and all the helmets and all the equipment, overalls and suits and shoes and all the bells and whistles, and they still have the possibility of potentially dying. And that's with all the top of the line safety gear.
I think one thing that we should have done to, avoid things would be to probably see that the brakes weren't working all that well and just turn around, go back home, do it again when everything's working properly. But now that, from my experiences, good enough isn't enough. Make sure that it's perfect before you go, and wear your seatbelts, because if the car is not, the lap seatbelt worked, but the shoulder seatbelt didn't, and I had mine on, and I still came out. So make sure that your seatbelts are working and everything's working properly. So the message of this is to all the other kids out there that are like myself, who's likes to go out and do exciting and dangerous things. There's one thing that you have to think about, and that's the bigger picture. At the time you think about how much fun it is or how cool it's going to be, and yeah, it probably is going to be cool, but if something tragic happens and you pass away, what do you leave behind? You leave behind your family, your friends, everybody who cares about you.
You really gotta think about the big picture. Think about other people, your family, your friends, whoever really cares about you, or maybe even relies on you. Because it's bigger than just you.
So please think twice about what you're doing. Wear that seatbelt or put on that helmet. Just take an extra second to really think about it, because the long-term effects definitely hurts the people close around you a lot more than you might think.
So my recommendation to protect yourself and your family is to check a couple things before you go. Number one would be to check your vehicle or your equipment, make sure that it's working properly. Second is check your safety equipment, whether it be seatbelts, helmets, boots, anything like that. Make sure that it's working properly, because it will help you. And three, take a buddy. If you can't take a buddy, let somebody know where you're going.
I don't want you or your family to suffer the tragedy like we did, so please make the right choices and be safe.
you.